Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to part 3 of this WordPress 10 minute or less series for a beginner on getting started with WordPress. We're just going to jump right into it here. This is where we left off last time. If you followed the first two videos in this series, you're going to be to this same spot right here. This is just the WordPress dashboard, and so we're just going to jump right into what each thing is to try to get it into 10 minutes. So starting at the top bar, this is your top admin bar that follows you around WordPress when you're logged in. Even when you go to the front end, this bar is going to follow you, meaning it's always there when you're logged in and then disappears when you're logged out. So on this bar, you're going to have, this is a link to the front end of your site. All it is if you new tab it, it'll just come to this is what your current front of your website looks like, which is just the default when you install new WordPress. And then on the back here, you have this one here, which is just whatever new comments are on your posts, new shortcut to a new post, new media upload, which would be like image or video, a new page or a new user. And then over here is your menu for editing your profile and then logging out. The dashboard screen itself just has the site health status. This is kind of a newer feature with newer WordPress here that kind of tells you what it believes are the health indications of your website. Quick drafting a new post, your WordPress at a glance, which is just all your posts, your pages, and your comments. Any activity you've had. Hello world is obviously all the starter stuff that gets loaded in when you start, and then any WordPress events. This screen is actually editable through a menu that personally I didn't know existed for a while, but it's right here. And this allows you to remove stuff out that you don't want. And then as you install plugins, they'll be available here. So, and we're going to get to that when we get to plugins. So the next thing you're going to have is your updates. This is going to automatically tell you when WordPress has new updates, and then also you can set it to install automatically, which is I think by default in all new WordPress installations. I don't know if it used to be, but I know that it is now. Okay, so that's all this is. When you have updates, they'll be here, and you can just mass update everything all at one time. Posts, this is pretty self-explanatory, I think. This is just all your posts, blog posts that you create inside your WordPress. They go right here. You just add new to add new. Categories, this is where you can create categories for your WordPress and give them specific slugs so that they we're going to talk about permalink structure in the next video, but when we do the basic setup. But creating a slug is basically creating like a category, right? So saying like all these posts are about, like in this case, the flower shop, right? All these posts would be about flowers. All these posts would be about promotional sales. All these posts would be about holidays, etc. And so that's what goes into here. And this is where you can set those up and add them. So when you create a new post, you can tell it what category to go into. So that's really all you're looking at here. Okay, so this is your tags over here. Tags are pretty much exactly the same as categories. They're pretty interchangeable. They're almost the same thing. It's very hard, especially if you're a new user, to determine why would I use a category or why would I use a tag. You would use a tag to be more specific than a category. A category would contain something broad, and then tags you could throw at it to make it more specific for users who are trying to really drill down. And this is really if you have a huge blog or you're doing a lot of posts. Otherwise, most times just categories are going to suffice for you. But that's the main difference. In the media, this is also self-explanatory. This is just uploading to your site anything that you want to upload, being media related, such as images, files, things like that. You do it right here, and then you could easily call to them in your WordPress. We will get to that as well. Pages, similar to how you add posts in, except pages are full pages, and they can take on different styles based on the theme you've installed, and pages are more standalone, where posts are just usually put on pages. This is more like creating a website, where posts is more just creating a blog and then putting them on a blog roll. So we're going to be doing quite a bit with pages as well. Comments, I don't even know if we need to go here, but I will. Comments is self-explanatory. It's just your ability to add approve or disapprove comments and then see where they're being posted. Appearance. So this is going to be a little bit more in depth. And the appearance in the themes is where we can add and remove themes. By default, WordPress includes all of their themes, which I've never really used. I don't know how many people actually use the default WordPress themes. And this is where you could add new themes, which we're going to have a 10-minute video on themes as well. And so you can add new, and there's two options when you do that. You can either search all the open free themes, or you can upload your own paid theme. Either way is fine. And we're probably going to go with, I'm not sure if we're going to go with a paid or a free theme for the flower shop yet, but I'm still debating on that. Customize is actually what is called the customizer, or at least that's how I know it. And this is kind of a WordPress way that lets you go through and edit specific items like your link colors on your menu and all kinds of little random stuff like your footer. You can change all kinds of stuff about your footer, and you can change all kinds of stuff about your layout of your site. And but what you're going to actually find is a lot of more expensive or high-end themes will actually have their own customizer, or they'll have a lot of these options set inside the theme at the dashboard itself. So this is kind of for more base themes, and then some themes will actually use a crossover where they'll do part of it on the theme and part of it on the customizer. I know that sometimes Divi is like that, and Themify sometimes is like that too, which are two drag and drop theme bases, cores that you can work on. Widgets are pretty simple to explain. They're just things that go into your footer or your sidebar. You have an area in your site that's called a widgets area, and so like you can choose where you want it on a page. A lot of times if you create a sidebar, the way that you get content into the sidebar is by widgets. You add widgets to that sidebar, and this is where you do that. You can add all kinds of stuff that's built into WordPress by default, and if you need anything custom, there's custom HTML, images, navigation menus, all built in. And then there's a lot of plugins that will add more widget functionality to your site, and they'll add more widget spots. Like there are plugins that can add widget spots pretty much anywhere you want, and then there's plugins that will add pretty much, like I said, any function you want to a widget is available through plugins. And if not, it's pretty easy too. If you know how to do basic PHP and that kind of stuff, and you need to build something, you can even have plugins to output PHP code in your widget areas. So that's pretty much a quick rundown on widgets. Menus is pretty obvious as well. That's just your menus of your site. You can create different menus and then give them the locations where you want them in your site. The background is also pretty much exactly like you'd expect. Just takes you to the customizer and lets you customize the image for the background of your entire website. And then theme editor allows you to edit the actual physical files for your theme. This is something that you would do if you're a little more experienced. And a lot of times you won't even do it through here. You'd actually do it through the physical files versus doing it through this little backend editor they have. Plugins, exactly the same as we just talked about for themes. This is where you activate and add new plugins to your WordPress that change and give you all those little new functions. These two come by default with WordPress and usually get deleted, except a lot of people like this anti-spam one. A lot of people really actually use it. It helps from keeping a lot of bots, because there's a lot of people that just buy the bots that roll through hundreds of WordPress websites that have open auto-approved comments to create backlinks, right? There's tons of those out there. So once your site actually gets indexed and has some traffic, it's going to get a lot of spam comments trying to be put on it, and so you want to make sure that those get pushed away. So even if you don't have this, we're going to set to everything to be not approved until you manually look at it, but this tries to actually make it so you don't even have to look at it. Otherwise, you have to delete them all yourself. You can add a new plugin through here, and then you can search and you can find through all their plugins they have. We're going to go over plugins and which ones you want, and then you can upload paid ones here. Plugin editor, same thing, you can edit the files. The users section is exactly as you'd expect. You can add new users to your WordPress, and you can give them different roles. Some people have administrator roles, which gives them all the powers you have here. There's also editor, I'm trying to remember all the roles. Yes, they have just subscriber, contributor, author, and editor. And so basically it allows people to either all the way up to controlling the site down to just being a subscriber on the site, and then all the in between for people who can actually create blog posts on your site and all that, like guest posting and things like that. And then the tools section, I never found myself using tools a ton in the WordPress, using the tools part of the website, or sorry, the administrative dashboard. I never really needed a lot of, or any had really a use for a lot of this stuff. Site health is an interesting one because, like I said, it's relatively new to WordPress, to the most recent version, because before you kind of had to download plugins for this, but WordPress is kind of trying to bring it in-house at this point. Importing is essentially what you'd expect it to be. It allows you to import from other places like RSS feeds and Tumblr and other WordPresses and stuff like that. So if you are into, or if you're doing something like that, like if you have an existing blogger, which is owned by, pretty sure is owned by Google, right? And you're trying to import it into here, you can import from all these other places. But with what we're doing here, we're not going to need this. So unless this is something that you need for yours, like if you have a Tumblr, or if you have whatever, and you're trying to incorporate it, you can do that here. And then the settings, this is actually pretty in-depth. There's the general settings for your site, which is your title, your URL, your administrative email, all this information, the way you set up your time zones and all that. The writing is, like they're saying, if you send posts to an email, you can do that through here. your default post category. So when we create a category, you can defaultly post it here and then determine what kind of post format you want. And then Pingmatic, when you publish a post, WordPress will notify the following sites. So you can set up this as well if you want sites to be notified that you have posted something. I think it creates an RSS feed and it just updates it. Reading is probably the most important one because this is where it lets us set our home page and post page information. We're going to get to that when we create pages. And then this allows you to determine how many blog posts you want and things like that. This is important too, discouraging search engines from actually indexing this site. When you install WordPress, a lot of times you don't want them to index you right away because you're building your site. So you'll click that, but you can't forget to unclick it. And I have my own way of doing this that I'll show you that it really doesn't matter. Discussion is all about your comments, about making sure that you have to author them, and we'll go more in depth on that too. Media is just managing your media, thumbnail sizes, defaults. We'll also cover that. Permalinks is the most important in here because it's determining how your URL reads out to a user, how it looks in a browser, because you don't want it to look like this for a post, right? Nobody knows what that's about. Instead, we really want it to look more like this right here, and we will get to permalinks and why they're very important. And then the privacy is the last thing, and that's just updating your privacy policy for your website. It's becoming more and more important these days to have privacy policies and terms and conditions to actually show or lay out what your site is collecting on people, if it is at all, so that you're in the clear if anything ever comes around, or if anybody actually looks for it, it does exist. So it's important to have that as well. So that's just a quick breakdown of the dashboard and what each little section does. And in the upcoming videos, in fact, the next video, we're going to get started on setting up the basics of your WordPress and exactly what you should do right when you install a new WordPress as far as your permalinks and your site naming and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into that in the next video. We're just going to go through and start to clean up the basic settings of it. So that's what we're going for next. Like every other video, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and I appreciate you watching it. And like before, if you like how fast these are, or if they're too fast, let me know. I'm just trying to kind of get a groove here on presenting the information, whether it's too fast or too slow. This is kind of a lot for 10 minutes because it's the whole overview for WordPress's dashboard, but just like before, just go ahead and hit the bell and subscribe, and the next one should be on the way shortly behind this one.